For Loretta Young's entire life, she tried to bury a heartbreaking secret with the power to destroy her reputation. The trouble was, as the years went on, her secret got more and more obvious. Now, when Loretta Young came into this world in 1913, she wasn't born Loretta. Her given name was actually Gretchen. Gretchen's mother raised her family with strong Catholic principles, sending her daughters to different Catholic schools, including the Ramona Convent boarding school. Priests visited their household for dinner regularly, and this strict upbringing fully influenced Gretchen's moral code. For the rest of her life, her faith and religion played a big part in the choices she made, guiding her hand and ruling over her perceived sins. After starring in one more silent film as Gretchen Young, she finally changed her name, and it came about in an unexpected way. When she signed a contract with producer John McCormick, she met his actress wife, Colleen Moore, who saw something special in Gretchen. However, executives believed the name Gretchen just didn't suit the young actress's gentle beauty, and so Colleen called her Loretta after the name of her most beloved doll. Yes, you heard that right. Loretta Young was named after an adult woman's doll, but with Gretchen's doll-like features and doe eyes, the name just stuck. Now, Loretta Young was a very self-aware young woman. She knew her own ambition and followed it to fruition. Even when producers cast her in minor roles, she always tried her best to capture as much screen time as possible. As an extra in a roiling crowd, she'd push her way to the very front, cheeks flushed pink and shining for the camera. Now, as a teenage Hollywood socialite, Loretta had a professional veneer to maintain. Always on the arm of one handsome fellow or another, she fitted in and out of lavish events and clubs. As a precaution against scandal, she hired a publicist to keep her name on the straight and narrow, especially in the gossip columns. Above all, she wanted to maintain the image of the girl next door, pretty, pure, and above all, Catholic. Now, at the young age of just 17, Loretta Young made an unconventional choice. It was one that flew in the face of her mother's conservative wishes. After meeting Grant Withers on the set of The Second Floor Mystery, Loretta couldn't keep her eyes off him. To her, he was the perfect leading man, but like most first loves, she soon learned his vices. He had a penchant for freedom and an affinity for drink. Nevertheless, she thought the two of them were just meant to be. High on love, Loretta and Grant flew off to Arizona to tie the knot. Ironically though, and perhaps even laughing at themselves, the couple starred in one more film together. It was titled Too Young to Marry. In the end, this name taught them a difficult lesson. To Loretta's dismay, her marriage barely lasted a year, quickly crumbling and spoiling the picture-perfect reputation she had worked so hard to maintain. Loretta Young was at war with her own hypocrisies. She so desperately wanted the wholesome image of a dutiful Catholic girl, even going as far as refusing to utter the word divorce on screen. But her true nature butted heads with these ideals at every turn. She enjoyed the company of gorgeous men and had recently experienced a widely publicized divorce with someone who was not a Catholic. Well, the heart wants what it wants, and in 1933, Loretta Young met Spencer Tracy on set of A Man's Castle and fell off the deep end. This time, she fell for a Catholic, but a red flag remained. Spencer Tracy was a married Catholic. Although Spencer and his wife acknowledged their separation, his Catholic morality barred him from actually seeking a divorce. In the end, their devotion to their beliefs proved the biggest obstacle in their relationship. Torn and heartbroken, Loretta penned a goodbye letter to Spencer that spoke of her adoration, not only for her lover, but for God. She wrote, quote, "It will be impossible for us to see each other again unless we can truthfully and honestly be a good girl and a good boy." Quote, Spencer ended up keeping this letter until the day he died, and later in life, interviews with Loretta revealed her everlasting nostalgia for Spencer and the love that could have been. On working with him, she described him as an absolute dream. She admitted that lost loves are forever romantic because they are never fulfilled. Quote, "They are always in the romantic stage of promise and mystery." Quote, however, all bets were off once Clark Gable entered the picture. This was a Hollywood rogue with unbeatable charm and a reputation for being a man about town, and he was also married. Both Loretta and Clark landed lead roles in Call of the Wild, and it mustn't have been easy to resist the charms of the so-called King of Hollywood. Loretta loved the attention, and as long as she kept her morals straight, she believed there couldn't be any danger. And even though Loretta enjoyed the longing gaze of Clark, she still nursed a broken heart. Most days she fantasized about a letter boy trudging through the snow, bringing her a note from Spencer Tracy. However, the letter never came. Now in 1935, Loretta Young found out she was pregnant. During the early stages of her pregnancy, Young finished filming 2 more films and made numerous public appearances. In fact, she made sure to stuff her schedule with as many events as possible. She wanted to seem consumed by her work and her social calendar, so much so that an eventual illness wouldn't seem out of place. And so, at the end of August, with the baby due in November, Loretta Young came down with a mysterious illness brought on by severe exhaustion. Her doctor recommended at least 2 months off from filming and never disclosed her condition. The public had no idea that she was actually pregnant. Under the guise of illness, Loretta was free to hide away from the cameras and give birth in secret. While she stayed sequestered in a cottage far from prying eyes, Loretta felt the downsides of her isolation. For once, she wasn't the center of attention, and any freedoms she could afford, like attending drive-in movies, still sang of loneliness. Even so, the rumors kept coming. In one last-ditch effort to get them off her back, an 8-month pregnant Loretta took a risk and invited a reporter into her home. Loretta Young disguised her belly beneath piles of comforters and pillows before allowing Dorothy Manners, a gossip columnist, to speak with her. The article that followed, titled Fame, Fortune, and Fatigue, helped quash the rumors and built Loretta up to be as beautiful and resplendent as ever. And with the public finally at bay, she was ready for the arrival of her child. Loretta gave birth to her daughter and named her Judy, after St. Jude, the saint of desperate cases and lost causes. Now, according to the rumors, Loretta sent a telegraph to Judy's father, notifying him of his daughter's birth. His reaction was chilling. He allegedly tore the notice up, letting the pieces fall to the ground. He wanted nothing to do with her. And if you think that was bad enough, the story gets much more sickly and disturbing in just a few minutes. However, Loretta and her nurse Frenchie cared for Judy for the first couple months, but her fears in regard to her studio and career bubbled to the surface. She had broken her contract's morality clause and risked disgrace. In order to save face, Loretta gave Judy up for adoption and sent her to an orphanage. But then, Loretta concocted a plan. After 19 months spent mostly away from Hollywood, Loretta made a surprising announcement. She said that she planned to adopt 2 young girls, a 4-year-old named Jane and a 23-month-old named Judy. But right before the adoption could go through, Jane's mother changed her mind and wanted her back, and so Loretta only adopted Judy, her own biological daughter. She craftily manipulated the system and reunited with her daughter without causing a public scandal. Now, Loretta Young believed that she fell in love, at least a tiny bit, with every co-star. And while the press didn't catch wind of her hidden pregnancy, they certainly reported on her rumored attachments to many of her leading men. This included David Niven, Tyrone Power, and the director, Joe Mankiewicz. For the tabloids, it became expected, with one gossip columnist writing, quote, "But it is not to be taken seriously. After all, Loretta is always reported romantically inclined towards her leading men. It's just a gag with her." Quote, now, Loretta knew who Judy's father really was, and as Judy grew older, she started to look more and more like him. Loretta tried to hide, to save face, and keep her good girl image. When Judy turned 7, Loretta took her to a plastic surgeon to pin back her ears, which did end up working. However, the lies just became deeper and more elaborate. It was something she even kept from the next man she welcomed into her life, her second husband, Tom Lewis. Tom loved Loretta dearly and never questioned Judy's parentage, and any doubts he had, he simply kept to himself. So for Loretta Young, life went on. For now, that is. She and Tom Lewis welcomed 2 bouncing baby boys into their home and named them Christopher and Peter. For the first time, she didn't have to lie about her children. Everyone knew that the boys were legitimately hers. Although she had her hands full with the rigors of motherhood, it never slowed her down. During World War II and until the end of the decade, Loretta was at the top of her game. The 40s helped define her career. Her work in Hollywood saw no standstill, and for a golden moment, she made up to 8 movies a year. In 1947, she received one of the highest accolades. She received an Oscar for her performance in The Farmer's Daughter. Her movies were always light, and her characters almost always enjoyed happy endings. The real question is whether her life afforded her the same courtesy. Now don't go anywhere, because here is where the story of Loretta Young starts to take a turn. In 1949, MGM sought Loretta Young out to play another role alongside former co-star Clark Gable. Filming on Loretta Young and Clark Gable's movie Key to the City went swimmingly. At least it did at first. One day, Loretta passed out on set. She was swiftly moved to the safety of her dressing room, and the press announced that she was suffering from complications from an unannounced pregnancy. But then, only 2 weeks later, tragedy struck. Loretta experienced a very real and devastating miscarriage. With the stress of the loss of her unborn baby, Loretta still made it through the rest of the shoot. She even went the extra mile and threw the premiere party at her home. But now, with that over, Loretta Young's final challenge was keeping her daughter Judy in the dark about her parentage. Unfortunately for Loretta, by 1958 she couldn't protect her daughter from figuring out the truth on her own. And now, it was time for Judy to confront her mother and learn the truth once and for all. So on one memorable Mother's Day celebration, Judy pinned Loretta to the spot by demanding the truth. After a lifetime devoted to hiding it all away, Loretta couldn't bear to face her daughter and see the hurt her lies manifested. Instead of replying to Judy, she fled to her room and vomited, and after that, their relationship was never the same. You see, back in the 30s, while Loretta and Clark were filming Call of the Wild, Loretta had vowed previously to keep her chastity and stay morally correct, and it was easy, with her and Clark's chaperones always being there. And also remember, at the time, she was still suffering a heartbreak from Spencer Tracy. However, on the overnight train back to Hollywood, after they had finished filming, the stars enjoyed individual sleeping accommodations. For once, Loretta Young didn't have a chaperone by her side. She was alone and vulnerable. Clark Gable, aware of her isolation, left his own compartment and entered hers. What conspired on the night train remained a secret until decades later. However, one thing is clear. Whatever happened in that train car went against Loretta's chastity vow, and sadly, she'd have to face a dark aftermath. To her dismay, Loretta Young discovered that she was pregnant with Clark Gable's child. They'd only been together one time, but the damage was done. As we now know, she decided to keep the pregnancy and the baby a secret, which led to a lifetime of lies and secret keeping. And yes, it was Clark Gable who Loretta sent a telegram to, informing him of the birth of his daughter, and it was he who shredded up the note, not wanting anything to do with her. And a little while later, during Judy's childhood, Loretta Young invited Clark over to see his daughter, but she can only recall him visiting Judy once in her childhood. Loretta even opened up a bank account to allow Clark to discreetly provide for his daughter, but he never deposited a single dollar. Now, if you think the story is already twisted enough, just hang on a little longer. Loretta always took responsibility for the moment on the overnight train when Clark Gable came to her. Loretta believed that a man never gave in to temptation unless a woman provided an opening in the first place. For her entire life, she believed the pregnancy was her fault. But then came a day when her understanding of that pivotal night changed forever. In 1998, an episode of Larry King Live changed Loretta's life. It alerted Loretta to a then new term called date rape. The next night, when Loretta's daughter-in-law Linda came over for dinner, she asked her to explain what it meant. When Linda told Loretta that a situation like that doesn't necessarily have to be an act of violence, quote, "It's when your no isn't a no," quote, a look of realization passed over Loretta Young's face. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, and she replied to Linda saying, "That's what happened to me." Upon this realization, however, Loretta opted to protect Judy from this new knowledge. She recognized that Judy had an idealistic portrait of Clark Gable and knew that this disturbing information could prove destructive. After all, the two of them were just starting to mend their own mother-daughter relationship, and Loretta desperately wanted to see this happy ending through. For herself, there was peace. The burden of guilt was somewhat alleviated, and that was all that mattered. On August 12, 2000, Loretta Young passed away from cancer at the age of 87. Her daughter Judy followed her in 2011, succumbing to lymphoma. It was only after the two of them were gone that Loretta's son Christopher and his wife Linda revealed the shocking truth. They opened up about the secret they had kept on Loretta's behalf, Clark Gable's alleged assault. Now, neither Loretta Young nor Clark Gable are here today to defend themselves or deny any accusations. This means that the entire truth will never be told in full. Now, what was it about Loretta Young's life that you found most interesting? Was it her strict upbringing and moral code? Was it the situation with Clark Gable and her lifetime of secrets? Or was it her work on set and the Oscar that she won? Let us know down in the comments below, and if you're interested in more Hollywood stories, make sure to subscribe to the Factinate YouTube channel.